Hello, wonderful. It is Sarah K Ramsey, and I'm here with Janine Wirth, and we are going to talk about your future, changing your story, putting the past in the past, getting this, if you've heard me, you've heard my phrase, get past the past, get real about the present, and get serious about the future. And I think Janine and I share that vision of, if you've had something terrible happen to you, you've had a tragedy, you've had trauma, it can be the start of your story. It doesn't have to be the final chapter. Hey, Janine, how are you?
Hey, thanks so much for having me. I'm excited to speak to you today.
Well, tell us a little bit about who Janine is and why you are an expert in this arena.
Okay, so my professional bio will tell you that I'm a licensed psychotherapist, a clinical hypnotherapist, and a coach specializing in unresolved trauma. What it won't tell you is that I had a traumatic childhood myself and survived a hijacking, kidnapping, and attempted rape at gunpoint at the age of 18, which was also the same day I got my driver's license. So yay, lovely initiation into adulthood. And I actually then went into a corporate career. Obviously, I had some, PTSD that I worked with a therapist. And from that moment, I just fell in love with trauma because, I had a mother.
I fell in love with trauma. What a unique sentence. Yeah. That's what someone today said. Oh, don't you get tired of hearing about all these women's stories and all these people's stories? I was like, no, I don't. Yeah. It's a fascinating puzzle to watch people put their lives back together. Right.
And I mean, the thing is, I wouldn't be who I am today,
right.
And neither would you if it wasn't for the path that we've, taken to come to this place. Yeah, I'm deeply passionate about trauma. I can talk about it every day for the rest of my life.
I love it. Well, so you're very passionate about people's next chapter and these traumatic events, even something as traumatic as yours, it being one chapter in the story. How do you help people move into the next chapter?
Well, I always tell my clients that you can't change what you're not willing to acknowledge. So the first step is actually acknowledging what has happened to you. And very often, especially if the trauma occurred in their childhoods when they were very young, or it happened, for example, sexual abuse is a topic that a lot of women don't feel comfortable speaking about. So very often I have the privilege of being the first person to hear their story and hold that space for them. And then it's like, okay, you acknowledge that this has happened to you. How can I help you to make that one page of your story? Because a lot of women, I sort of divide women into two camps. The one is in that victim energy where this has happened to me, my life is ruined, I'll never get over this. And that becomes like the banner or the theme song to their life. And then you have the other type of woman, which is the woman that I want to inspire. And that is the woman that's like, okay, this has happened to me, but I'm still going to become the person I was always meant to be. I'm still going to go on and have amazing relationships, a successful career, whatever it is that they wish. And then it's like that survivor energy kicks in. And it's like, yeah, this happened to me. And I want them after their treatment to be able to be neutral about it. Like grass is green, the sky is blue. This traumatic experience happened to me, but there's no emotional charge in it.
So I think that's a really important thing to know, because, there's probably a lot of my listeners are hearing other people who are like, I'm a domestic violence survivor, I'm a narcissistic abuse survivor. And even that, it's like, within my Wondrous Woman program, it's like, I want you to just be a wondrous woman. It's not it's not about, you're a kidnapping survivor.
Yeah.
Yes. But that's a part of your story, not your identity.
Yeah. And that's the difference between people who actively choose to heal and go on to be whoever they were meant to be, and the people that set up camp in this pity party and basically end up living there. That's two very different types of people. And we want to get the people, yes, obviously it's awful what happens. And I hear the worst of the worst, as you can imagine, but it's like, okay, now we're going to move you from there to here into that healing space. And that is an active decision that a lot of women don't realize they actually get to decide that they want to heal.
So my favorite word that you just said was an active decision. Okay. That means attached to action, right? So a lot, and I know this is a trauma response, but a lot of my listeners get stuck obsessively studying narcissistic abuse or just studying narcissism or personality disorders. Yeah. And that I did it too. Right. But I joke that it's like, man, if you knew everything there was to know about narcissistic abuse, would you be happier? Is that your goal? Is anyone happier? Or kidnapping? If you understood exactly everything there was to know about kidnapping, or it's like, when you kind of say it that way, I think people go, oh, well, no, I don't think I would be happier because it's it's terrible. It's a terrible
almost
thing.
Like holding on, I'm sure you've seen that picture of someone holding onto a rope and their hands already bleeding. And it's like they're not willing to let go. By getting all the information possible, they are holding on to it in some way. They think that it's positive, but it's not really. Unless you want to become an expert in that specific topic, you don't need to know everything.
And if you do want to be an expert, because I'm a toxic relationship specialist, right? But it's that piece of helping people move forward versus obsessing over the trauma. Would that be fair to say? Yeah,
absolutely. Obviously, as specialists or experts, we need to know a lot more about the topic and how it shows up and how it can play out, because everybody's journey is unique. But for someone who is choosing to heal, there is no point in all of that.
And knowing as an expert or specialist what we need to know and what we don't, right? Yeah. Like, what are the things that people like, oh, these 10 types of narcissists, are they a covert, are they overt, or are they this, or are they that? And it's like, that is feeding, and I'm sending all the love out right now, but that's feeding the addiction to toxic, like your addiction to them. It's like, oh, you get to listen to another podcast about them. Oh, you get to talk about them again. Oh, you get to think about them again, versus that was one chapter in my story. Yeah. And it's closed unless, I know there's a variance degree of people in your life. If you had a toxic mother, she's probably not going completely away. I understand that and want to acknowledge that, but closing that chapter and moving on to the next one.
Yes, exactly. And at some point you have to decide, okay, this is not going to be the center point of my life. Some people really, as you say, that becomes a part of their identity. And you can see it very easily when they start saying things like my trauma or because it's such a part of them.
Interesting. Yeah. So what are some of your favorite strategies? So obviously they need to decide, they need to take action to move forward. What are some other strategies that would be safe to talk about on a podcast? Because I know we are dealing with trauma and I want to safety first, but that would be a safe way for people to start to move forward.
Yeah. Well, I think it's very important to, if you can, find someone who is recognized in the field to help you collapse the timeline. Because I'm someone who believes that you don't have to be in therapy for 10 years to see results.
Preach it, girl. No, I was going to ask you what you thought about healing as a lifelong journey, because I'm always a little bit brokenhearted when I see that, and want to say to every woman, if you like studying things and learning and you like relationships and inner reflective work, you can grow. You don't have to heal. Like you can scratch that itch through growing rather than
I think sometimes people confuse healing with self-development.
Exactly.
You want to keep on becoming the next best version of yourself. And I hope for most people that is a lifelong endeavor. It certainly is for me, but I consider myself to be healed. I can talk about things that have happened to me with zero emotional charge. I've overcome that experience. I've taken the lessons from it, and I've actively chosen mentors who are experts in their field to collapse my timeline and get me to the point where I feel good about who I am. This doesn't, it's not a burden, this huge anchor around my neck that I'm carrying around for the rest of my life. And I think that because people see so much online and everybody is offering this and you have to do this and then you have to do, no, each person's journey is unique. I think that you can definitely shorten that timeline by reaching out to someone who knows how to lead that journey a bit and to accompany that journey. But I don't think that you need to spend 20 years healing. No, absolutely
Well,
not.
you were talking about an anchor around your neck, and I imagined you wearing your kidnapper around your neck as a necklace, or these women, that I work with, that I am, wearing a toxic person around their neck as a necklace. The weight of that, right?
Yeah, well, I mean, you can, but I sought help about a week after my event. So I started that journey really quickly. I didn't wait years and years and years. Oftentimes, when people don't actively seek help, they will start making decisions from that injured or wounded self. And they start developing patterns in their life that they can't really identify themselves because it's so normal to them. That is their normal. So sometimes having an outside person saying, you know what, you keep going into relationships with men that treat you like crap. There's a reason for that. That is a pattern of behavior which you can choose to change. But it comes back to that awareness and, saying, okay, this seems to be a pattern. Why am I doing this? And most of the time we can relate that back to certain events. Right?
Well, so what advice do you have? Because I agree. It's like, there's that scenario about hitting rock bottom. And it's like, man, if you can make some changes before you hit rock bottom, it's not nearly as long of a climb up. So what advice or tips would you give to a woman who, maybe is even in that trauma response of I don't need anybody's help, I have to do it on my own, because that can be a trauma response too. What advice would you give someone who thought they could do it on their own?
I think that society has basically brainwashed us that it's weak to need help, that we, especially as women, need to take care of everyone else. We're always taking care of, partners, children, whatever. And so often we tend to put ourselves last, which is one of the reasons I decided right from the beginning that I'm going to work with women only, because women always put themselves last. But it's actually an act of courage to put your hand up and say, well, you know what, I thought I had this, but I don't.
And active intelligence, not that if you don't seek help, you're stupid. I'm definitely not saying that, but as like, if for example, I'm terrible at investing stocks. I have, I don't think, I have to know everything there is to know about stocks and I have to know, but I was on a podcast earlier with a financial advisor and I thought, I need to maybe look at getting someone to help me with some of the things that I am not skilled in. And I think if you say something like that, if I say, I think I want to be a good manager of my money, and I'm thinking about hiring a financial advisor to help understand stocks, no one's going to say, you're so weak. What's the matter with you? But if you want to be a good life manager and manage your time and energy and mental well-being, it's the same thing, right?
Exactly. And I think that it's so easy to think that you have to do it by yourself. But in reality, we have so many resources available to us. it's not like 30 years ago where nobody spoke about trauma or mental health or anything. We are living in a time right now where it's so easy to get help compared to the past, because people are having these conversations. And I think when people stop shying away from difficult conversations, it becomes easier for everyone else.
And I call that leading by example, right? So just like when I look at my daughter, and I know you have kids too, when I look at my daughter and think, do I want her to just hold on to everything and think she can take care of it herself? Or would I, do I now take her to the doctor, take her to get tutors, take her to get coaches, take her to get, right? It's not any different. She doesn't expire at some point and not need help anymore. Well, Janine, this has been a great conversation. Can you tell people where they can find more about you?
Sure. So my website is janinewirth.com. Wirth is W-I, not O. And on Instagram, I'm therapist_Janine Wirth. And come.
You have a podcast too, right?
Yes, I do have a podcast that is launching very soon. It's called Heal and Transform Your Life. And I'm going to be speaking to women who have decided that they're going to be what they were always meant to be, who they were always meant to be. Women that have overcome, that have actively decided they're going to heal, and that are just doing amazing things in the world.
Well, and I'm excited and honored to be on your podcast very soon. Yes. So awesome. So we will connect again. Any last words of wisdom?
I would tell any woman that, especially those of you who are mothers or who want to be mothers, whatever has happened to you is not your fault, but healing is your responsibility, because unresolved trauma shows up in every single part of your life. It shows up in the way you show up in your relationships, shows up in the way that you parent, very important. It shows up in how successful you will be, So I really think when something affects so many areas of your life, it's worth investing a little bit of time, maybe a little bit of money to sort that out, so that that whatever you're doing, you're showing up as the best version of yourself.
I love it. We are so aligned. I say that what happened to you, may not have been your fault, but you're the solution. So maybe it wasn't your problem to solve, but it's your solution. You have to be your solutionist now, right? Yeah. It's your problem to solve now. Your life is your problem.
Absolutely. Especially for women where they have a history of generational trauma in their family. And you get that one person that's like, this ends here with me. Those people, those are the courageous ones.
Well, I think, I hope that I am that person. I think that I am, and I think you are too, Janine. It's been a great conversation. Thank you for helping us on our journey to becoming toxic person proof.